Gary Alvarez is back in the house, and we are going to stick with offensive line for a second straight episode. Before we get hopping today, I'd love for you to like and subscribe, and certainly throw your thoughts into the comment section here. I really do like engaging with all y'all on this issue and many others. It's good stuff. But anyway, yesterday's show, I discussed the firing of A.J. Blazek. I just used passive voice. It most definitely was Luke Fickell firing him. And gave my opinion that this was a really, really necessary and needed first move as far as the coaching staff goes in the 25-26 offseason. The line and the development, and certainly with this last cycle, the recruiting simply was not good enough under Blazek. Wasn't good enough under any objective measure you want to use. Nice guy, well liked. I wish him all the best, and I have no doubt that he'll get a coaching job again. These guys are able to land on their feet. It just could not continue to be with the Wisconsin Badgers in this system. Wasn't working. So I mentioned it wasn't totally in passing. I had a few thoughts on Eric Mateos yesterday, but I want to talk about Eric Mateos in more detail right now in this quick hitter. I did a shallow dive, is what I would call it, before yesterday's show, because it was more focused on the situation that led to Blazek's ouster, why that ouster was necessary, and a little bit on Mateos. This is all on Mateos, and I have some very, very strong preliminary thoughts on this hire. And I want to be clear before I launch into this that I am not some savant guru on offensive line coaches in college football. If that individual exists, hats off to them. It's a really interesting niche. I'm sure there are data guys and analysis guys and gals who delve into this stuff more than I do. But I'm pretty good at kind of a basic beat, like deep dive, internet dive, and talking to a few people behind the scenes, not in the locker room, but folks who know stuff about this stuff. And I have formed an opinion on Eric Mateos. And that opinion is very, very, very positive. Okay. Let's just kind of examine some of the top line things of why I think Mateos is a good hire. And I think usually when you're analyzing this kind of stuff, the what have you done for me lately is the best place to start. Although I have some things that go back further, especially in his relationship with Grimes. So I will admit, when I heard the Arkansas Razorbacks 2025 offensive line coach, I did have a little bit of pause because that was a 2-10 Razorbacks team. Very, very, very poor football team. Some coaching issues there as well. Head coach was ousted. But this is why you need to take a second look at things, or as a war in this case, a first look. Mateos is the offensive line coach for a team that is bad, yet somehow, some way, under one major and well-respected analysis conglomerator in college football, this guy had the number one ranked offensive line in the SEC. It's kind of like a Pro Football Focus analogy. Ahead of teams like Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, on a 2-10 team that, not coincidentally, had one of the absolute best rushing offenses in the SEC, if not America. This was a really good offensive line. I think they put 3 guys on the first and second team all-conference. Again, from a 2-win team. That is almost impossible, guys. That is almost impossible. This is like a situation where you have a big, gigantic ball of like coal and rock and a bunch of waste things, and somehow you blast into it and find a diamond. And that really is what Mateos brought to that Arkansas Razorbacks team. Just super impressive. And, I don't want to look, how will it translate to Wisconsin? We'll get into that in a moment. The top line for that is there is no way to know for sure how it'll translate. A little bit different situation, but we had, a guy in Grimes with 2 Broyles Award finalist positions in the 4 years prior to coming to Wisconsin, and they had the second worst offense in the college football. There were reasons for that. I don't think the reasons are reflected that Grimes suddenly forgot how to coach. So there can be strange things that go, up and down. One thing does not necessarily mean another thing is going to be true. So a good previous performance does not necessarily mean a future one will be good. But the cornerstone, concrete, and bones of what Mateos brings to Wisconsin, it is very, very difficult not to like this. He is a tactician and a student of the game in terms of offensive lessons. This isn't a guy who just like a Brooknell who makes a friend and is a +1 at another job. This is a guy who independently has time and time again proven that he's very good at what he does. Okay, he was at Baylor between 21 and 23, 2 really good seasons, 1 so-so season for that team. He was the offensive line coach at BYU 2019 and 2020, the Zach Wilson era. Both of those were under the Wisconsin coordinator. So, the fact that he has worked extensively with the person who is going to ultimately be his boss, at Jeff Grimes, that is very, very good news. Grimes, as beleaguered as his squad was this year in terms of production, there is no way, this is just another data point, that Grimes is going to hire an offensive line coach that he doesn't think can get it done. He's got too much riding on it himself. Kind of in the same way that Luke Fickell wouldn't keep Jeff Grimes on if Luke Fickell didn't have confidence that Grimes could turn this around, because it directly reflects on Fickell. So looking at some of the other accomplishments, turning back to Mateos, he had 2 of his offenses at Baylor had the best rushing offenses in the Big 12 in those years. And that's a big thing to do. But that kind of coupled with his recent work at a bad Arkansas team, when he still finds a way to rise to the top of other offensive lines in a completely stacked and eminently talented SEC, is really something. I mean, again, I'm trying not to delve into hyperbole here. Is this going to come in and be the best offensive line coach Wisconsin has ever had? Almost certainly not. Can this guy come in and be the kind of offensive line coach that you could see under a Paul Chryst or a Brett Bielema? Toughness, not, setting the edge, not going to get outworked. If you need that 1 yard, you can get it. That kind of thing. Finding lanes for your talented running backs. Yeah, I think obviously we have to see what the offensive line looks like from a personnel standpoint, but yeah, this is the kind of guy, based on what he has accomplished and the types of system he runs, where you could see that happening. You can see it happening, guys. I mean, we talked about the 2025 season. His 2024 offensive line, when they were a much better team in Arkansas, was super impressive. Okay. That was a 450 yard per game offense, very high points per play offense. But when you look back, as I noted, past Arkansas back into Baylor, he was doing it at Baylor too. And before that, he was doing it at BYU too. It takes a team, it takes a village. It wasn't just Mateos, but his offensive lines were a huge linchpin for a number of highly successful offenses across 3 different schools, different conferences. You talk about home run hires. You're not going to go in and get the offensive line coach for Ohio State. That's never going to happen. But as far as the people who are available, who have recent success at a high level in a major Power 4 conference, this feels like a home run, guys. it feels like a home run. Go ahead and bookmark this. And Wisconsin averages 2.6 yards rushing next year. You can come in and cross-examine me with it. But all we can do in mid-December of 2025 is project. And based on what I have read, the highlights that I've seen, the people I've talked to, Eric Mateos, they just knocked it out of the park with this one, guys. This is a potentially monumental positional coaching increase. And with that comes street credibility. When you're in the transfer portal, when you're back on the recruiting trail, trying somehow to sell a 4-win team to a guy and sell a vision. Well, this guy, I'm not sure he would lead with this, but this guy can say, hey, man, I know we only won 2 games in Arkansas, but he's probably not going to say it like this, but we had 3 guys on the all-conference teams somehow. We averaged one of the top rushing offenses in the SEC the year we were 2-10. There are some real projectables here for Eric Mateos. And anyway, I'd like to hear what you think about Mateos. We'll see how it goes. But if we're not grading it formally, but if I grade it, it's an A. It's an A, guys. Big upgrade. And Scary Albers is out.